The legislature's underway. Clearly the primary season's in full swing, and we're here at This Week in Missouri Politics to talk about it all, so we're going to jump right into it with our first guest, Representative Holly Rehder from Southeast Missouri, down in the Boot Heel in Sikeston. Welcome to This Week in Missouri Politics.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my first time on your show, so I'm very excited.
And we're very glad to have you. Let's jump right in. This week, you guys had a full week this week. It's you're doing a lot early. To start off with, you did a bill about sex trafficking carried by Representative Har from Springfield. Give me the cliff notes on exactly what you're trying to accomplish with this piece of legislation.
With this, there's and I know it's kind of hard to believe, but so there's some forms of advertising that is available that's legal, and so we're making it extremely pointed that it's punishable once this bill passes.
So basically, you grab your local Riverfront Times or some of the websites; those would be illegal in the state of Missouri to advertise any type of sex trafficking in those places, right?
Correct.
It's interesting how maybe that's the way you actually go at the root of this. Craigslist dealt with this a few years ago and got rid of their sections. These, I guess, if this makes it through the process, how quickly will you see those advertisements come down?
I would hope immediately.
Well, let's jump into a piece of legislation that you've worked a lot on. Former Senator Engler, now Representative Engler, carried a prescription drug monitoring bill that you've taken up in the form of the Narcotics Control Act, am I right?
Yes.
What will that actually do?
So the Narcotics Control Act, all other states about Missouri have these in place. They're called PDMPs, Prescription Drug Monitoring Program. And so what this will do is it allows your physician and your pharmacist to have a firsthand look before that physician writes that prescription or before that pharmacist fills that prescription, as to see if you are a drug abuser, if this is maybe your fourth narcotic prescription this month, that you've been going to multiple doctors. So what this does is it helps curtail abuse on the front end. It helps your physician to be able to recognize addiction early on in their patients so that they can start working towards a healthier lifestyle, have that conversation with the patient. You know, you don't need another script of OxyContin. Perhaps we need to start talking about methadone or Suboxone. And so then it also allows law enforcement, if they, with a subpoena issued by a court on an open case, to obtain records if they are trying to prosecute. So someone that might be a dealer that's going to multiple doctors, getting multiple scripts, and then selling them on the street.
So your argument is this is not only something that could help facilitate people's health by making them not addicted, but this is a law enforcement issue.
Right, it is.
So you have opponents. Senator Schaaf has been a very vocal opponent of this, even back when it was Senator Engler's bill. Right. Ryan Johnson has been a very vocal opponent of this bill. Right. They come back with a couple things. One is how you make this database. Can you keep it secure so people can't hack into it?
Right, and you know, the first one was implemented in 1939 in California. Wow. Yes, and so there has never been a breach. Missouri has Missouri Health Net, which is our Medicaid system. That is a PDMP for all of those on Medicaid. It has that information. That has never been breached. So it falls under HIPAA laws. This is less invasive than electronic medical records, yet we have those. So to me, it's a red herring.
So the argument that I think appeals more than most on this piece of legislation is, do you really need another government database? Is this another thing where the government collects Missouri's information and keeps it, and aren't we trying to stop those things from happening?
Yes, we are. However, this isn't an intended use for the government. This is a tool that physicians, that our medical professionals are crying out, saying, we have got to have this tool in our toolbox if we're going to curb addiction, which is of epidemic proportions, if we're going to help stop the progression from opiates to heroin. So we have all of these things that our medical professionals are saying we must have, and we're completely turning a blind eye to it.
Big week in presidential politics. It seems like the air was thick with excitement. Even Jeff City, people were like wanting to find a TV that they could see the primary results Monday night. Ted Cruz, campaign ran by Missouri's own Jeff Rowe, came out on top, and Hillary Clinton, I eked out a win, which it's interesting that they would be that excited about that win over a guy that's a socialist. Give me your take on what happened.
Well, I'm not a presidential race scholar by any means. I'm so impressed with Jeff Rowe and what they've been able to do across. I mean, you know, Ted Cruz's polls are going up everywhere. Between Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, I mean, how scary is that? That a socialist that barely had, no one thought he was going to have traction, and now is neck and neck with Hillary Clinton, who's been running for president for many, many years
Bernie
now.
Sanders is everything Ronald Reagan said the Democratic Party was.
And that's scary. That's, you know, across America right now.
Well, it's more ideologically pure, I guess. One thing I've noticed, it's very fashionable these days to kick Jeff City. I worked there 15 years ago, and there was a lot more the behavior people would castigate today going on there. But when I started working there, they passed liberal legislation, and I don't remember the problems with dinners. Now that you guys passed conservative legislation, well, it's terrible and awful. And I found that it's a very inspiring, and it comes at a very good time to see a Missourian who's also walked the halls of the Capitol, and Jeff Rowe being so successful. I think maybe that's you hear all the doom and gloom and the negativity about Jefferson City. I happen to think it's a pretty great place, great town, but isn't it nice to see someone from Missouri succeeding on that level?
Oh, absolutely. I think it should be exciting for all of us. I think it's very hugely impressive.
In a time when there's a sea of gloom pointed at the state capitol for whatever reason, it is nice to see someone that has that shared experience of walking those same halls, being the Fox News Power Player of the Week, right? I mean,
absolutely, yes.
Speaking of back home, though, the race for governor, there's some folks that they're not a fan of Jeff City, but yeah, they want to work there. Kind of odd. Give me your take on the governor's race and where that is now.
You know, I'm very much for Peter Kinder. He's been my candidate from the beginning. I was hoping that he would get in. And I've worked with Peter for years on many issues. He's
having fun, isn't he? He's having a good time.
He's having a good time, and he's strong. He doesn't wait to check the temperature of people before he comes out on an issue. You know, when it came to Ferguson, I mean, he jumped out front and started talking. You know, he doesn't wait to see what the best avenue is going to be, what the polls are showing, before he jumps in. That's what a leader does. And so I'm very hopeful that he will be able to be our next governor.
Got to be because you're the front runner right now, right?
What now?
It would have to be considered to be the front runner today, right?
I would think so. I mean, his name ID, of course, is incredible, and you know, and he has been so instrumental helping the Missouri legislature. And one of the things that last year, another representative and I were talking, and I said, well, let's just go ask Peter. And so we walked over. He's like, oh, come in. Sat us down, went through all of this information with us, and on our way out the door and walking back to the house, this other representative said to me, he said, Holly, how cool is that the lieutenant governor just brought us into his office, started opening books, talked to us about all these issues. He's so accessible, but that's how Peter is.
Well, and as the process moves forward, we hope you'll come back to This Week in Missouri Politics and discuss this very interesting governor's race. And thank you for being on today.
Thank you for having me so much.
And that's Representative Rader from the Boot Hill. We'll be right back with our Opinion Maker panel, but first we'll leave you with this week's leading Missouri economic indicators.
All across Missouri, our new car and truck dealers are building strong local economies. When you buy a car or truck in Missouri, you're helping to support over 20,000 Missouri families who rely on the auto industry for good-paying local jobs. You're also helping fund our communities, schools, first responders, and our roads because dealers generate millions of dollars in tax revenue. Missouri's automobile dealers have been the foundation of our communities for generations and for generations to come. The Missouri Automobile Dealers Association, the heart of Missouri.
For more than a century, the St. Louis Carpenters Union has shaped our communities. Through trusted alliances, we deliver skilled professional craftspeople while our business partners provide the kind of quality jobs that keep our economy humming. It's a blueprint that has worked since 1882. Turning Missouri into a right-to-work state stalls progress, wipes out jobs, and kills momentum. Right to work is wrong for everyone. Let's keep Missouri moving forward. Visit carpdc.org to learn more.
Welcome back to This Week in Missouri Politics. We're now joined by our opinion maker panel with the first time Laura Swinford, you're not the new executive director anymore, but the executive director of Progress Missouri.
Yes.
Glad you're that Nicholson guy. I mean, it went straight up since you took over.
No comment.
Speaking of,
She seems a lot nicer.
yeah, clearly.
This is fantastic.
Speaking of women that have to carry around men through life, Mindy Mazer, the wife of Jeff Mazer, but more importantly, GPS Impact, longtime Democratic operative. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks, great to be here.
Shamed Dogan, State Representative of the Republican Caucus, up and coming, already carrying bills and making things happen. Good to have you back. And Speaker Jones, which you did bring the whiteboard.
I did.
So check.
Time for that. We can get to that later.
Perfect.
Thanks for having me back.
And what some people say goes good with the whiteboard is prescription drugs. So let's talk prescription drug
Why not?
monitoring. Give us the rundown, Shamed, on prescription drug monitoring and where that is in the legislature.
Well, the bill is up again, and we've got Representative Rader, who's very passionate about the issue, has led a task force on it. There's a lot of people pushing for it. I'm one of the ones who's opposed it in my year there, and I think there's serious privacy concerns that most Missourians would share. We don't want the government knowing a ton of stuff about us. We don't want them knowing what drugs we're taking. That information could be compromised. I really haven't seen any assurances that this information won't be able to get out. So Senator Schaaf has kind of an interesting proposal out there to let the voters decide. If people are willing to give away their privacy rights like that, the voters have the authority to do that.
Mr. Speaker, this issue was around when you were in office.
Yes.
How did you deal with that? I mean, there are, especially in all Missouri, but especially rural Missouri, there's concerns about prescription drug use and the problem it has in a community. And if you're going to make some drugs illegal, there are issues with this, that there's a need here. How did you balance those concerns?
Well, absolutely. And even prior to me, my uncle, former Representative Kenny Jones, former sheriff of Montauk County, he carried the bill originally. So this thing's been around a long time. And since it's been around, the 49 other states have all passed some version of this database. Now, I understand some of the concerns that Shamed and some of the folks who have a more libertarian view on this believe with big government data and privacy, but let's remember what we're talking about here. These are narcotics. These are controlled substances. And if and when, which I believe it is a when, we do pass a medical marijuana bill in the state someday, either by referendum, that's going to be a highly regulated industry, and people would expect it to be. Narcotics should be monitored as well, in my mind. We have a huge problem, especially in the rural areas, right across the border from me in Jefferson County with meth production, et cetera, and go on and so forth. So I see it more as a public safety issue, and I'll disagree a little bit with Shamed on that, which may be surprising to some.
I mean, this issue cuts across lines. You see Republicans that support it and oppose it, and Democrats that support and oppose it.
Well, I think it's a personal issue too for me because the issue of prescription drugs abuse and also as that's related to heroin and other drugs that we see increasingly here in our state. That's a huge problem. I lost a cousin earlier this summer. He was 22. He had his whole life ahead of him. And we know that he at least got one prescription prescribed the day he died. So I don't know all of the background and details, and I would only hope that, I don't think Missouri being the only state in the nation to not have some sort of mechanism in place to flag some of these issues is a really good distinction for us to have. I think there are huge problems, and this is one tool in the toolkit that can help. I do think that it needs to be, whatever they come up with, it needs to be written in a way that it is a health care issue, and that the folks that need help with regard to their health, if there's an issue, you see multiple prescriptions happening at the same time, or doctors prescribing too much, or interactions with different doctors that they might not know about. It needs to be a clinical view and not a criminalization view.
Laura, what do you think? Not your typical issue, right?
I'm sorry?
Not your typical issue, right?
Correct, but I think Speaker Jones brings up a good point that it's really been wreaking havoc on rural areas. But I think it's important to note that there's been a lot of research and a lot of cases in the past couple of years that it is growing exponentially in urban and suburban areas, and leading to a lot of heroin use, a lot of heroin overdoses. I'm from suburban St. Louis. I grew up around here, and my friends, people we have grew up babysitting, and we've lost some kids.
Wow.
We've been to some funerals, and it's. And the numbers are only growing. And so I think law enforcement has put out some interesting research on that too. So I agree with Mindy that I think there's a thoughtful way that it can be done.
Mindy, Iowa caucuses this week.
A more fun topic.
Yes, Hillary Clinton barely beats a socialist. Not a guy that you're saying is a socialist, a guy that says he's a socialist. Barely beats him. How does that happen?
I mean, I wasn't that surprised. In fact, I wouldn't have been surprised if Bernie had done even better in Iowa just because of all the kind of feel the burn momentum and such. The caucuses are just such a unique thing. But to tell you the truth, the thing that I thought was most interesting that night was Trump's speech in the Iowa caucuses.
He's a loser now. He
said if he didn't win, he was going to be a loser, and he's a loser. But that's not what he said that night. Part of, I think, what his appeal had been up to that point was his authenticity.
Now he's a loser.
Well, maybe so. But he talks, he says it as it is and everything. And then he got up there that night, and what he said felt completely inauthentic and okay, they forced me to say this, and I love Iowa, and I'm going to buy a farm, and it just felt really strange to me. And I wonder if that's going to
poorly contrived lie, which I think everybody knows he's not going to be a farmer. But Laura, I personally credit Hillary Clinton's win for the work Mike Kelly did last weekend in Iowa. I mean, if anybody fits in Iowa, it's Michael Sean Kelly. But how did that happen? How did he almost beat her?
I mean, how did Bernie almost beat her?
Yeah.
Bernie's got a lot of energy. I mean,
No one likes her. No one likes her, right? She's not likable on TV.
Oh, you've got to be kidding me. I patently disagree.
New Hampshire town hall, there was a moment, I was almost in tears earlier this week. But anyway,
I'm actually
I was in tears for a different reason.
There you go.
That's okay. So we were all in tears. Hey, listen, I think Bernie Sanders is a great candidate. People are excited about him, and that's great. But, when you come to Hillary, I mean, of course you're going to be in tears. She's fantastic.
Mr.
and she'd be
Speaker,
first woman president.
Yeah, so we're looking at...
that's an exciting topic.
Do you realize this? Not only could she be the first woman president, we could have the opportunity to vote for a woman for President Pierce. She'd be the first one on the ballot as president.
Mr. Speaker,
it's exciting.
Barack Obama made history. I think the entire country is proud to have our first African-American president, but he was actually a good politician. He was one of the most likable people you've ever seen in politics. She doesn't have some of those skills.
He and Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton could probably win again today. But, I'm here to tell you, I think there was voter fraud on both sides, apparently, in the Iowa caucus. Because I'm here to tell you, I think Bernie won the Iowa caucus because who can win 6 coin flips in a row, So the Clinton crime cartel has once again defrauded the American people. And I believe that Bernie voters and Trump voters have a lot in common. There's passion there on both sides. And, it's not the conservative elites and the Republican establishment that are necessarily Trump voters. Trump is pulling from blue-collar, working-class people. The Reagan Democrats are coming home to Trump, and that's what the Clintons fear the most.
Shamed, when you look at Iowa, Ted Cruz pulls it out. Isn't it nice to have a positive thing about Jeff City? Somebody that, when it seems like everybody, the right-wing Republicans and of course the editorial pages don't like what you pass, so they think you're bad people. Isn't it nice to have a guy that trotted the same hole as you did, being so successful in Missouri's Jeff Rowe?
Well, Jeff's done a tremendous job, obviously, managing that campaign. I think we want to talk about history with Hillary possibly being the first woman, possibly being the first person indicted to become president. I think we are ignoring the fact that more than half of the voters of Iowa voted for a Hispanic candidate, Cruz and Rubio. I'm on the Rubio train, and I think Rubio gave a presidential-type speech. It was almost a victory speech. Even though he came in third, he defied expectations. He did much better than anybody thought he had a right to do, and I think he's going to do the same thing in New Hampshire.
Jeff, 60% of the Republican vote in Iowa went to 2 Cuban Americans and an African American. 60%. That's right. Whereas on the other side of the coin, we had 2 old, cranky white people. So that's the difference, and that's why this election is going to be going to the Republicans.
You're the man that turned me on to the Trump pinata.
Which should have been here today, by the way.
Well, I mean, we generally only have pinatas of winners, and Trump is not a winner anymore. Why will he be able to close? Iowa seemed like it had every possible natural political factor against him. Will he win New Hampshire?
he's going to win New Hampshire. He's from that part of he's from that neck of the woods. His name ID. Trump is the ultimate reality TV star who's now dove into politics, and that's why he's doing so well. He entered this race with extremely high name ID, as these two ladies know. Name ID is first, and then preference, right? So that's why he's doing so well. The real races begin after New Hampshire, when we start to really get serious with primaries.
Does he win New Hampshire?
I think he wins New Hampshire, yes.
Shamed, does he win New Hampshire?
Probably.
Does Bernie Sanders does he? I assume he wins New Hampshire. Is it close?
I think he's going to win by 10 points.
Oh, Mindy, it's 10 points. If Hillary Clinton can become within 10 points, is that a Pyrrhic victory?
Well, I'm not a betting woman on the percentages, but I think after you get through New Hampshire is when the real race is going to begin. I agree with Speaker Jones on that. And I think the ground games in the other states in the next round are going to be the ones where you really see things start to break apart there.
You know, I've seen the Democrats start, when this became an actual race, and there was a moment they started scheduling more debates, and they started putting them on nights somebody might watch them. I thought she did pretty well in her debate. Do you think that there was a mistake made by the Democrats sort of trying to game this for her by not exposing her? I thought she did well at that New Hampshire forum.
I agree. I don't think. I mean, I think the assumption of people trying to game it for her. I'm not sure if that's really the case.
Have a debate on a Saturday night. You don't want
I'm not
anybody
really
to see
sure that's the
that.
case.
Come on now.
I watched it on a Saturday night. Maybe that's more commentary about my own personal social
life.
life.
Don't work in politics. Watch it on a Saturday night.
Well, I mean, I think that's a question to be had. The ones with little kids did.
I thought she did well, though. I mean,
Yeah.
put in a real debate setting in a real night where somebody might watch it. She was tough, and I think
She is tough. She's a pro.
I don't know that you know, warm and fuzzy is going to be the way she comes across, but as a fighter, I thought she did well. And maybe they should let her win or lose by how she does, and I was pretty impressed by that.
I think you're coming around to our way of thinking, Scott.
Well, I mean,
I think that's what I hear.
Pick a socialist. I mean, I'd pick the wife of the last successful president. Some people would say.
Well, I think the assumption that she would lose New Hampshire is perhaps incorrect.
Wow.
They love her there. Remember what happened last time she won New Hampshire?
Former staffer Mr. Callow and Schweitzer on the ground up there. So it'll be an exciting night. If it's close, it'll be very interesting. Mindy, who wins the Republican side?
In New Hampshire or in general?
New Hampshire.
Oh, in New Hampshire. I don't know. I think it's very fluid, and I think it'll be fun to watch. I've been really enjoying watching the GOP side, and I think it's actually been the most interesting presidential race we've had in, well, my lifetime probably.
And Iowa, I brought the whiteboard
break
for
it
you
out
today.
now. Yeah, no, let's
So
do it now. Let's do it now.
Iowa's relevant because mainly it showed which campaigns are serious and who has organization, who doesn't. So here's your top five. Here's your top five people, and I've named all of their followers. So we've got the Cruzites, the Trumpkins, the Rubicons,
Trumpkins, I like that.
the Clintonistas, and the Sanderists. You know,
No,
and so
okay.
there's your top five candidates. I believe in this cycle right now, and they're all going to battle it out going forward. I will point out though, less than 1% of the delegates for either side in their conventions are from Iowa. So it's not really important as far as delegate count. It is important to show who's got a serious campaign and who doesn't. There is only one winner-take-all state before the Ides of March. So that means everything is going to be split proportionally until that point, which means I think this year Missouri is going to be relevant in this whole debate.
Give me a quick prediction. Who wins on the Republican side?
Rubio.
Rubio. Who wins?
Rubio.
Who? That's not what you want to hear. Who wins?
Fiorina.
Nice.
Just kidding.
Nice.
I had to get that in there.
New Hampshire?
I noticed she didn't answer. No, who wins the whole? Who's the Republican
whole
nominee?
tamale.
The whole enchilada.
Yeah, who wins it?
Oh boy.
We're gonna hold you to it. We're recording.
You're gonna hold me to this?
You bet. You bet.
This is on TV.
I know this is on TV, so it's forever and for real. I actually I don't know, but I think if you had to ask me, probably Rubio.
You think
I think he's got a really good
Bush quits, the money goes to Rubio?
I think he's got a really good shot, but I think that you're seeing some circling of the wagons around him too because of that momentum that you saw after Iowa.
Can I give you a dark horse?
Yeah.
Chris Christie,
Love it.
because he's the last governor in the race that has a chance.
And he's got a little bit of that Trump about him. He speaks his mind.
Yes, he's the sane, reasonable version of Trump, as Mindy and I discussed earlier.
Mindy, University of Missouri. Oh my
Yes.
gosh! You would think that they could find a way to just find the bottom, and they don't stop digging.
Yeah, it seems, at least from the outside, very chaotic still and troubling, and you see, another curator stepping down. And I think for me, as a Tiger, proud Tiger, second generation Tiger, I really want to see folks work together to try and build the university back up. There is an opportunity here. There's a vacuum in more than one spot where we can put in new leaders and new ideas and address some really serious issues that have been bubbling up, frankly, for decades.
Now you have more professors coming out saying Melissa Click should be reinstated. Do they not understand that no regular person with any common sense sees that as, geez Louise, come on.
So I'm also a proud Tiger. Mindy and I were actually at Mizzou at the same time. And I really think it's important to build the university back up. I think it's exciting. It's an exciting opportunity. I think it's a shame that a lot of folks, frankly, running for office right now are using what's going on at the university to score some points for their campaigns.
Hasn't it went past, people aren't making the issues up anymore. I mean, it's went past,
Well, they're
it's a
exacerbating
political
them.
thing.
I mean, I think we're well into the rubbing salt in the wound, lemon juice in the paper cut area of things.
Is it possible that a budget comes from the House that zeroes out Mizzou?
I wouldn't say zeros out, but we're taking a hard look at some of the expenditures. When you have a university president that's living this cushy lifestyle, having 2 drivers, having fine china paid for with taxpayer
and they
dollars.
don't want an audit.
Lots of waste and fraud going on. They're going to be audited, which is going to be great.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Speaker, aren't you glad you left office before the thing
My
exploded?
timing on a lot of things
Wow.
has been really brilliant, hasn't it? No, look, I didn't go to Mizzou, but my parents did, my in-laws did, my cousins all did, Representative Caleb Jones, my cousin did. This, we've had our anarchist moments, and we've had our protests. The adults better get back in the driver's seat in Mizzou. Credit rating downgraded, recruits deciding not to come, curators departing. The adults have really got to take control, or the legislature is going to fill that vacuum. That's what's going
They
on
had
here.
a chance with Melissa Click to make a statement that we get it. We're not completely academically released from reality, and they didn't do it.
That's really where they jumped the shark. You had this crazy woman attacking an Asian American journalist at a journalism school. I mean, it really was like that was the tipping point where most normal people said there's a big problem.
Interesting this week, Shamed, Joe managed an interesting piece about the Republican gubernatorial primary. Speaking of University of Missouri professors, you have Senator Schaefer running against a professor and Josh Hawley. Who wins that?
I think it's going to be tight, but I think Senator Schaefer might pull it out. I think he's built a strong reputation among folks in the state. Hawley's new to the game. We rarely see people get elected to statewide office who haven't been elected to anything before.
Mr. Speaker, who wins that?
Right now, I
prediction?
give the edge to Kurt Schaefer, but Josh Hawley's going to give him a real run for his money.
I'm not even going to ask. I assume that neither of you are very excited about either one. So, and that's where we'll leave it right now with this week in Missouri politics, and we'll see you next week. This Week in Missouri Politics, brought to you in part by Sterling Bank.